Welcome back to the Get Your Goat Golf Podcast, where we tackle all things from the perspective of a high handicapper who's someone who still believes in every round could be the one where it all clicks. Now, it's the kind of optimism that you usually find from either a fairy tale or from somebody who's never actually swung a golf club before. Now, in the last episode, we talked about getting fitted for clubs because nothing says I'm serious about improving like paying a small fortune for some equipment that'll perfectly fit your terrible swing. And yet we keep honing and hoping that this time, maybe, just maybe, technology will work its miracles. Spoiler alert, it won't. But it makes for a great story. Now, speaking of great stories, today we're going to talk about a local golf company that was once the talk of the town. You know the type. These guys were organizing tournaments, hosting scrambles, and selling more polo shirts and hats than a used car salesman at a high school reunion. They even had the legendary John Daly scheduled for a big golf weekend. That's right, the John Daly, the one who once did a swan dive into alligator infested waters, the one who's admitted to drinking before major tournaments, the one who hits beers off or golf balls off beer cans and then plays in a round like it's no big thing. It doesn't get much more legendary status than John Daly. And then people were excited and they started lining up faster than John Daly would at an all you can eat buffet. And then, well, let's just say things went downhill quicker than my ball after I shanked one off the tee. The whole event got canceled, and the company apparently just sort of vanished, kind of like one of my stray balls into the rough. Now, there was apparently no refunds, no explanations, just a bunch of golfers kind of standing around in their brand new polos wondering what the heck happened. It was kind of like the golf version of getting catfished, except instead of a fake online romance, you get a canceled golf outing and a closet full of overpriced merchandise. So grab your clubs, buckle up, because we're diving into the wild world of golf tournaments, broken promises, and the lesson that sometimes the biggest hazard on the course is the company organizing the event. Now, the company that I'm talking about is what's called 517 Golf. Now, they were a golf company located here in Jackson, Michigan. And I first started hearing about them back in probably like 2019. I remember just kind of out of nowhere, all of a sudden seeing this logo on hats, this 517 logo. It's actually, if you're watching, it's this logo right here. And I started seeing those on hats and shirts, and I started kind of just wondering what it was all about. I thought it was kind of cool, this new golf company located right here in Jackson. I liked the logo. It sounded cool. So I started kind of paying attention to them on social media and saw that they were hosting different types of events. And the organizer of the whole thing was a name that it sounded familiar to me, but I couldn't quite grasp where it came from. And when I actually saw a picture of him, he didn't look familiar to me at all. So I didn't know. I thought maybe I see a lot of people, I hear a lot of names, so didn't know if that was the case or not. And then the first dealing that I actually had with them was they had posted a event. It was a uh, basically like a golf kids camp that was going to be hosted at Clock Lake Golf Course, which is one of the golf courses that I regularly frequent. And at the time, I had a son who had swung some golf clubs here and there, and I thought, man, this would be a great time to let him take this little camp, kind of local, and see if he really enjoys golf or not. It was only $50, and it was like a 2-day event, which included lunches. I don't remember; it might have even included a shirt. So we signed him up for it, and we went to the event, and it seemed very well run. There was lots of kids there, which I loved seeing. I just thought that was the greatest thing in the world. I love seeing kids getting involved into sports in general, but man, I really liked seeing them getting involved with golf. And so we did it, and it was set up, like I said, at the Clark Lake Golf Course. They had the whole little executive side of the course all blocked off specifically for that. And, they taught them how to drive. They taught them the short game. They let them actually go play a couple holes. They broke them up into small groups. And I thought it was a very well organized event. I thought it was run very well. The guy organizing it seemed like a pretty good dude. And I was very happy with it. I mean, I highly recommended it. I definitely told people that this was a good thing to get into, and if they were to run it again, I would definitely highly recommended that happen. And so I continued to follow 517 Golf as they kept hosting more and more events. I never actually went to one of the scrambles or tournaments or anything like that that they were actually holding. But I saw that they were running a lot of events. Now, they were actually at a couple of events that I went to. I can think of specifically two separate scrambles that I went to where they had some sponsorship there and they were at a hole. One specifically was at the Hills Heart of the Lakes. They had this little event where on this one particular hole, a short par four, they actually had it where they had like this guy that was shooting off like an air gun type thing. You put your ball into it. It was hooked to a compressor, and you paid like $5, and you can shoot that, and it would land on the green, 310 yards away. It would land on the green, and you got to buy that shot. And I remember thinking that was pretty cool. Other than it really damaged up the green with those balls hitting it, but they fixed it up. So there was that, and then there was another event that I was at where they were hosting the hole in one. Uh, Contest there where they were also signing people up for one of their future events. So, like I said, they were all around. The merchandise was selling, the clothing was selling, the hats were selling. They were hosting all these different scrambles and events, and it was not just in the Jackson area, but it was all over Michigan. And then I remember about a year ago, I remember seeing a post for this big event that they were going to be holding this summer that was going to have John Daly featured. Yellow Wolf, the singer, was going to be there, and I'm a big Yellow Wolf fan, so I thought that was cool and love John Daly. John Daly's always been one of my favorite golfers, even to this day. I still quote different things he said. I don't know how many golf outings that I've gone to where first thing in the morning I crack that beer, take a big swig off of it, and then say, where's the first hole and what's the course record as I stomp off, just like he would do. He was always been one of the guys that I really, really liked in golf. So I remember when my buddies had first talked about it, I thought, oh no, this would be a really cool event. I think we should do something like that. And we definitely discussed that, when that event came around, that was something that we would like to do. And then several months went by, and then I remember seeing something posted about it again in the spring. And I remember looking at it, and I didn't even notice at the time that Yellow Wolf wasn't being uh, promoted on it anymore. His name wasn't on the thing anymore, but they were still promoting that John Daly was going to be there. And it was basically this 3-day event. It was going to take place at Hills, Heart of the Lakes, and at the Clark Lake Golf Course over a Saturday, Sunday, Monday type of situation. There was a couple scrambles that were involved. There was a two-man like par three contest. There was going to be a long drive contest, and then at the Hills Heart of the Lakes golf course, they were actually doing this like USA versus Europe type of tournament, which was essentially they broke it down. It was a 18-hole stroke play tournament, but it was broken down into 5 tiers based off your handicap. They had 0 to 5 handicap was one tier, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, and then plus 20. And basically, what I had gathered from it was a winner from each tier would be taken, and then you would be actually your winning would be that you got to go to Scotland next year in this competition against a European team that I was assuming did the same type of situation. And I actually thought that looked awesome. I think it was $125 to enter it, which that included your golf. It also included a meet and greet with John Daly. And me being somebody that's actually trying to look and get more serious about golf, thought, man, what a cool way to actually try to take this serious and actually enter like a real stroke play type tournament. with real rules that I would have to take serious, but at the same time would actually have a shot because it would be based off handicap. I would actually be competing against other people that were similarly as bad as me. So I remember thinking I was going to sign up for that and maybe the long drive contest. Between those two things, it would have been like $175, including a meet and greet with John Daly. And then we were even talking about possibly doing one of the scrambles too, which was a couple hundred more dollars. But I was super excited about it. I was paying attention to it. I was looking into it. There was a couple of times where I almost paid for it, but I find myself a last minute type of guy, and I was also struggling with the fact that I was trying to explain to my wife why I was spending $175 on these golf things. So I didn't sign up, but I was still looking about it. And I remember a couple weeks before it was set to be scheduled, because I believe it was actually scheduled for August 25th, 26th, 27th. So just a couple weeks ago. But a couple weeks before that, all of a sudden, I remember seeing a post on the Clark Lake Golf Course site. They posted on Facebook basically saying the event with John Daly on the weekend of the 25th, 26th, 27th has been canceled. Please send any concerns or comments to 517 Golf. And I remember being shocked and disappointed. And I remember one of the very first things that I thought was, wow, that's weird that they're posting it, but there's been nothing posted from 517 Golf, because I actually went and tried to look to see if 517 Golf had posted anything, and miraculously I couldn't even find their site on Facebook or Instagram anymore. So I immediately started going through the comments, and when I'm going through the comments on the post, there were several people that were posting things like how the organizer was a crook and that he's done this before, which that had kind of surprised me. I'd never really heard of anything like that before. Everything that I had heard about 517 Golf had been pretty positive, but there were several posts like that. And then there was a couple people that had posted that same thing about my concern that why is Clark Lake posting it? Um, and then there was people starting to ask questions about refunds. And that's where a lot of the stuff about the crook came in, saying that there's good luck getting your refunds. He's done this type of thing in the past. And then something got brought up about Rockapalooza, which, if you're not familiar with Jackson, I do remember Rockapalooza maybe a decade ago. It was like a little music festival that was run here in Jackson with rock bands that would come. And I do remember that event. It was nothing that I ever went to or was a part of, but I do remember hearing about Rockapalooza. So I knew the name, but I didn't. There was some type of connection apparently with the guy that runs 517 Golf and Rockapalooza, and people were basically saying it's the same thing all over again. Well, then, as more and more posts, and I started trying to follow along with it, somebody did share a post. And it was an email from the organizer that was sent directly to somebody. It wasn't posted on 517 Golf or any public post, but it was sent to this individual, and basically the gist of it, I have it right here. But basically the gist of it was that it said, sorry, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, John Daly has injured himself and is going to require knee surgery right around the same time that our event is going to take place, and basically saying that the event was canceled under uh, no fault of themselves, and that they were trying to reschedule it for next Memorial Day weekend. And then there was something on there too about, to line up these type of things, they usually have to make some type of big down deposit to actually secure the individual. So that they were working on that, and hopefully they can get some refunds out, but they have to wait for that. Hopefully in a couple weeks they could start issuing them, and that they're just really sorry. And there was something else about you can try to dispute the claim on your credit card and they wouldn't fight it. And so once more after that was posted, there was several other people once again going with saying he's done it again. The response seemed kind of shady. There was some people even saying, that Bryson DeChambeau just did a video with John Daly where they were doing their Breaking 50 video, and he seemed fine there. So there was some people even basically making it seem like the guy was lying about the reason for the cancellation, and that the response about the refunds was just a delay tactic. And then the interesting thing came out was a couple days later, John Daly actually made a post. In the post, and I'll share it on the screen here for those that are watching this, but the post had basically said something to the effect of, there's been some talk, or he's been given information that the people from 517 Golf are saying that he's the reason why the event was canceled, and something to do about a knee surgery and an injury. And he basically said that that was nowhere near true, that he was not having any type of surgery. In fact, that he was golfing in another event here in Michigan this week, and that he was very disappointed that basically 517 Golf would lie and try to tarnish his name, and that he was there for his fans and things like that. And so that was kind of a big hit. It really made the 517 Golf and the owner uh, definitely look shady. Definitely look like, I mean, he had basically lied about the cancellation, and John Daly kind of put him out there for it, and that really, really made things look bad, and kind of supported some of the arguments that people were making about him being shady and scamming people. And so then the funny part to me was, then all of a sudden there was actually, in one of the comments that I had seen, somebody actually posted an MLive article. And when they posted the MLive article, the caption of it was Rockapalooza uh, owner sentenced to jail and probation for writing bad checks. And then it shows the picture, and the picture was definitely the owner from 517 Golf. And it was dated from back in 2014. Like I said, it was definitely that same individual. The name was the same. I mean, he looked a little heavier, but he was definitely the person that I met. And so then I start reading through the article, and it was funny because the very first thing that I read, it talks about the defense attorney says that he didn't believe that the defendant was actually trying to rob anybody, that he thought he just got in over his head, and that he had even brought $6,000 to the sentencing to try to start making some of these people whole. And I guess the issue was that he had actually owed about $17,000 or $18,000 at that point for some bad checks that he had written. And it's funny because as I'm reading the article, it's like, God, I kind of remember that. Some of those facts are starting to sound familiar. And then as I'm reading through the rest of the article, at the very bottom, it says, and then Dickerson says that several other victims had called complaining about being ripped off as well, but the judge decided that he wasn't going to issue restitution for those individuals because they weren't actually a part of this case or the bad checks. So I had actually prosecuted the guy back in 2014. That's why his name sounded familiar. I got to imagine when he first met me in 2019 at that kids event, I got to imagine that he remembered me. But it's kind of crazy that I didn't remember him. And this whole time it was, God, he was the guy that actually ripped off Rockapalooza. So, I mean, that's the story as I know it. I guess this is another case of high hopes turning into a rough lie. Whether it was a case of bad planning, unforeseen circumstances, or something more sinister, it's clear that a lot of people were left with feeling scammed and disappointed. Events like this remind us to keep our eyes open and our wallets closed until we know what we're actually getting, what we paid for. At the end of the day, golf is supposed to be about having a good time, enjoying the game, and maybe, just maybe, knocking a few strokes off of our scores. Now, it's a shame when things like this happens and leaves a sour taste in everybody's mouth. So here's to hoping we can all learn a lesson from this and keep supporting events and the people that truly make golf and the golf community great. So that is it for today's episode of Get Your Goat Golf. Now, keep your swings smooth, your putts true, and remember, sometimes the biggest hazards on the course isn't the water. Thanks for listening. We'll catch up with you next time. Remember, if you're struggling with your swing, just swing harder.